Three, two, one, and marker. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Cornerstone, the show where we attempt to navigate our culture through a biblical lens. As always, and until further notice, I am your host, Shane Kai. Two things before we begin. Number one, once again, I am testing the audio settings in a different way. So now we are going to keep the microphone in place where it was last time, but this time we're turning the gain down significantly to see if that changes what it picks up. For some reason, it feels like none of my changes are actually doing anything. So if while I'm editing this video, nothing actually does change and it still picks up a lot of noise, I'm going to have to look into it and figure out maybe I'm doing something wrong. Number two, I'm going to be trying something new from now on. I'm going to be uploading the videos Monday morning instead of Sunday morning. This will allow me to have an extra day to edit the videos without needing to be crunched for time. And this will also allow me to spend more time, like I said, editing, and it'll encourage me to get a little bit more creative and do things that I wouldn't normally be able to do with the, just the few hours that I had. So what's our topic for today? Well, last week we did a big episode regarding convictions and how they hold up in the faith and in the Word of God. Today I decided I would take a little bit of a break and dedicate this episode to simply help you get to know me better. And I think I might make this a little mini series within the series. So I'll have little get to know me episodes where I share a little bit about my life and my experience. And that way you come to know better the person who is guiding you through the series. So today we're going to be talking about video games. Like I said in the first episode, I didn't really grow up with video games in my house. The first console I had was an Xbox 360 back in probably like 2011. But that console was only in the house for about a year before it was removed for reasons. And even though I did have it for a year, I didn't really play all the games that people were playing in 2012, like Black Ops 2. I wasn't playing that. I played almost exclusively the Lego games. So Lego Star Wars, The Complete Saga, Lego Indiana Jones, Lego Batman 2. And that's pretty much all we had. Just a couple of Lego games and that's it. And I was perfectly content with that. In fact, it wasn't until 2018, when I was about 19 years old at the time, so this is only about 5 years ago, when I decided to use my own money to buy a Nintendo Switch. The first game I got with the Switch was a Lego game, because that's what I grew up on. It was called Lego Worlds. I believed it was really cool at the time. And I had always been a Nintendo fan because even though I didn't have many video games in my house, I was still able to go to my friend's house and play video games with them. And I did have a friend at the time. His name was Levi, and he had a GameCube, he had a Wii, I think he even had a PlayStation 1 at some point. So I played a lot of games with him, especially a lot of Nintendo games with him. I grew up on Mario Kart, Smash Bros, specifically Brawl, Mario games such as the new Super Mario Bros. Wii series, and there were a bunch of other much smaller games that most people wouldn't recognize that were on the they were on the Wii, the GameCube, the PS1, the 64, that I grew up on and I remember fondly. One of them was actually on the GameCube that I can recall. It was a game based around Wallace and Gromit. And I forget what it was called, but it was like the Zoo of Peril. And it was just Wallace and Gromit. You play as Gromit, essentially. And it was a platformer. It was a puzzle platformer. And you traversed through various levels of a giant zoo with different animals and different environments. And I think the villain of the game was the penguin with the glove on his head. I don't remember his name. I remember that game fondly. Something interesting about me when I was younger is I was always terrified of losing in games, even though nothing bad ever happened to me personally. I was just very scared to die in a game. So, what I often did is I would only play the first level. I don't know if anyone else experienced that feeling the same way that I did and maybe did things the same way that I did, but for some reason, every game that I played, specifically like platformers and things like that, I really only played the first level. I never did anything else. I was just so content playing with the first level. So, with the Wallace and Gromit game, the only level that I remember very well is the first level, which is, I think, it was like a giant tree ecosystem. So, it's like a jungle gym inside of a tree. And it was really, really interesting. So I remember that. I came to know Smash Brawl pretty well. I didn't play the campaign at the time, but I do remember it existing. And I didn't play it until much later. My main character in that game was Meta Knight. But, all of you should know that in Brawl, Meta Knight was one of the most powerful characters. At the time, I was too young to comprehend what an S tier even was. So I liked Meta Knight because of his design. He looked really cool, and so I played as him. And I unknowingly was playing as one of the best characters, and I still lost almost every round. I never won a round. So like I said, in 2018, I bought a Switch. I got Lego Worlds. The second game I got was Overcooked. I eventually started to explore the AAA Nintendo titles. So the first one I got was Super Mario Odyssey, and I adore that game. It's so amazing, and I love speedrunning it. I love messing around with it. I eventually got Splatoon 2, Breath of the Wild, Animal Crossing New Horizons. What else? Smash Ultimate, of course, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and a bunch of various indie games as well. Nowadays, I have Tears of the Kingdom. So when I say that I like video games, I've mostly been a fan of Nintendo. It's not to say that I don't like Xbox or PlayStation. I do. But like I said, Nintendo has been the day one console. It's been the 64, the GameCube. I think we have a visitor. Hello. What are you doing? What are you doing? What you doing? How's it going? This is Big Boy, everybody. I give Big Boy many names. Right now his name is Mingus. Hello, Mingus. What you doing? You got a big belly. Okay. All right. You can stay here, but you have to be quiet, okay? Can you settle down? You need to get out of the camera. I wanted to dedicate this episode, the real topic of this episode, to what my top 5 favorite games of all time are. They're not in any specific order. Number 5 is a game called Subnautica. It's a game that I play on the laptop. You can also buy it on console, but I don't recommend it unless you have a next-gen console like PS5 or Xbox One X, Series X, Deluxe, whatever they call it. I don't know. So Subnautica is a first-person survival open-world game where the entire game takes place on an alien planet known as 4546b, and the vast majority of the planet is covered by ocean. And there are all of the fauna and flora are alien to Earth. So it is beautiful and terrifying at the same time because you really have no idea what's going to be underneath you. It's not going to be sharks because we're all familiar with sharks. It's going to be things that we've never imagined before. There is a full-fledged story. There are Leviathan creatures, meaning very, very large creatures in size. There is a lot of customization to how you can build your bases and how you can set up your tools. And overall, it's a very, very fun experience because of the multiple biomes underwater, the varying depths. I think the deepest you can go is 1,500 meters. And the various creatures you can find everywhere and the resources and the environment. It all blends together to make a truly awesome experience. The way I've described Subnautica in the past is Subnautica is an unintentional horror game. It's unintentional. It's not meant to be a horror game. It's meant to be just a survival open world. But it kind of is a horror game unintentionally because people are so afraid of the ocean. And sometimes these creatures can be pretty terrifying when you see them swimming at you. And most of the time, they're 10 times larger than you are. Number 4 would be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, I've played both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to completion. I have collected all the Koroks in both games, all the side quests, all the main quests, completed the camera. I've done everything in both games. And if someone were to ask me which one is better, ultimately I would still say Breath of the Wild. Don't get me wrong, Tears of the Kingdom is absolutely incredible. It perfected a lot of the things in Breath of the Wild that weren't perfect. I do think that Tears of the Kingdom is, in a lot of ways, the better game. But the reason why I say Breath of the Wild is better is because Breath of the Wild is revolutionary. Although Tears of the Kingdom is amazing, it's not as revolutionary as Breath of the Wild because it's a sequel to Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was truly a revolutionary game. It is not an understatement to say that it changed the scope of gaming forever. I think a lot of games nowadays are trying to emulate what Breath of the Wild did. I love Tears of the Kingdom. I had so much fun playing it. I have little to no gripe with it at all. But I have very fond memories finding Breath of the Wild and just enjoying it so much. So I have to say Breath of the Wild is better than Tears of the Kingdom just because of my memories playing it. So that's number 4. We have Subnautica and we have Breath of the Wild. Number 3 is a game called Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is a game that really brought me out of a depressed state back in 2018. It's a farming game. It actually doesn't have a lot of action involved in it. You basically inherit a farm from your grandfather, and you are allowed to build that farm however you want. And the farm is just west of a small village with people living inside of it. I think what I absolutely love about Stardew Valley was just how amazing it was to meet and talk to new people. It was so fun to talk to the villagers because all of them have their own unique personalities and they all feel very fleshed out. And a lot of them feel very relatable. A lot of them are going through issues in the game that feel relatable to real life. And I think maybe that's why it brought me out of a depression, because I just felt like this game was speaking to me. Another thing I loved about the game was how every time I played it, I felt like I learned something new. Like, oh, I didn't know I could do this. Or, oh, I already knew about this item, but I didn't know what it was. And now 10 days later, I've just figured it out. I've just put 2 and 2 together and I go, oh, that item, it's for this, you know? So I think Stardew Valley is a very well-crafted game. It's all made by one dude. It is just such an amazing experience. I recommend everybody try it. You don't have to love it. You don't have to play it your whole life, but I recommend that everybody give it a try. The number 2 game on my list is actually not just one game. It's an entire series. It's the Five Nights at Freddy's series. And the reason why I count it as a full series instead of just one game in the series is because all of the games are relatively small. So I think it makes sense just to include all of them. Some of you might be asking me, Shane, didn't you make an episode about convictions? And I know that Five Nights at Freddy's is a horror game. So explain that one to me. And I'd be happy to. The creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, Scott Cawthon, is a Christian himself. I don't know if he's ever come out and said it verbally, but I can tell just by looking at his games that he was being very careful about what kind of content he included. Often in American horror culture, there are cliches such as excessive violence, excessive sexuality. A lot of horror movies also include religious connections to Catholicism and Christianity, with like upside down crosses and demons and nuns and things like that, exorcisms. And they're all really disgusting. And let me just be very clear, I don't watch horror movies. I don't enjoy them. I like a good thriller. I've watched some movies that are close to a horror genre, but more thriller than anything else. But again, I've watched a couple of horror movies and I really don't enjoy them, and I don't plan on doing it again because of all that content. The excessive violence, the language, the religious aspect to it, the sexuality. It's not for me. It's just not for me, and I will admit it is a conviction of mine. However, I do believe there is a very, very small portion of the horror genre that is built much different. And Five Nights at Freddy's is one of those. It doesn't have violence. It doesn't have foul language. It doesn't have sexuality. It doesn't have religious connections. It's just a very intense and quiet environment, It's like a room shrouded in darkness. It's empty. There's chairs everywhere, but no one in sight. There's nothing evil about that. It's just exploiting the human mind, and it's making you afraid of things that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be scary. And they put all these things together to make a scary environment, and then they release the tension by using jump scares. So I don't feel a conviction against playing Five Nights at Freddy's because, again, it doesn't have any of that gross stuff in it. It's nothing more than just a very intense environment followed by a myriad of jump scares. And so it's just sitting in an office going, oh man, I don't know what's around me. I don't know what's out there. And then you get jump scared and then it's over. It's really not that scary to me, and it doesn't feel inappropriate in any way, which is why I like the game. So you would never catch me playing horror games like Until Dawn, which has really gory sequences, or Resident Evil, things like that. I don't know if Resident Evil is horror, actually. I think it is. You'd never catch me playing those games. I really just like games that kind of capitalize on jump scares, and they just keep it simple. Nothing gross, nothing disgusting, just really simple, and then it's over. And then that's pretty much it. So I love Five Nights at Freddy's because of the storyline. It's very mysterious, and I love thinking about it and theorizing on it. I also just love all of the attention to detail that Scott Cawthon put into the games. It really is very inspiring to me, and I do aspire to make things in a similar manner that he does. I could go on and on about Five Nights at Freddy's, and I probably will in a future episode, so I'll keep it really simple here. Otherwise, this video is going to be 2 hours long. But just know that I'm a huge fan of Five Nights at Freddy's. I really admire the creator, Scott Cawthon, as a person. He's a Christian. He's a Republican. I really admire him. And I really like his creative style. I think it's really cool. It's not perfect, obviously, but I think his creative style is really cool and really admirable and really, really interesting. So I love the Five Nights at Freddy's series. So my number one spot for my favorite games is actually an indie game called The Final Station. I've talked a little bit about this, and it's also one of the games that I wanted to make a short film based on. It is available on PC, but I actually have it on the Switch, and it runs just fine on the Switch, so I would recommend you do it that way. I think you can buy it on Xbox and PlayStation too, but I'm not 100% on that, so don't quote me on it. It's an indie game where you play as a train conductor in an apocalyptic world. I have such a hard time saying that word. And again, I don't want to spoil it because it's a very short game. It'll probably only take you about 5 to 6 hours to complete. So I just highly recommend you play it for yourself. And experience the music, experience the environment. So those are my favorite games of all time: Subnautica, Breath of the Wild, The Final Station, the entire Five Nights at Freddy's series, and Stardew Valley. I will likely talk about video games again soon, but I just wanted to have a fun episode where you guys get to know me and you get to know my personality. You get to see what I like and what I don't like and things like that. So now we're going to get into a time of the word. I'm going to keep this one a little bit short because I don't really have a lot to say on it. I think it speaks for itself, which is a good thing. And I think it's important to allow the Bible to speak for itself sometimes. Sometimes you don't need to give an hour-long presentation on it. You can just say, you know what? Here's the verse. It's very clear. Have a good day. Like that's all you need to do. So it is Psalm 103. The main verse is verse 10 and 11, but I'm actually going to read verses 8 and 9 as well because they add a little bit to it. So verse 8, the Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in mercy. You might have heard that verse before. He will not always strive with us, nor will he keep his anger forever. And then verse 10, he has not dealt with us according to our sins, nor punished us according to our iniquities. Verse 11, for as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his mercy towards those who fear him. And then also verse 12, you might have heard before, as far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. I really liked this verse. I read it this week. I even hung it up on my wall. It's just such good encouragement. When we fall prey to our sin, we beat ourselves up about it. Admit it. We do that. I do that. I beat myself up and I go, why did I do it? I'm so awful. I don't deserve God. I need to be as far away from him as possible because he hates me, right? And that's what the devil wants us to think. But God doesn't think that way. He says, no, you are my child. And I don't care that you sin. I knew that you were going to sin, but it doesn't hurt me. Ultimately, because I have forgiven you. And I love you. So turn from your sin and follow me again. He doesn't care how many times we have to do it, whether it's just once, 7 times, or 70 times 7. He always tells us, I love you. So turn away from your sin and follow me. And I just think that's amazing. I just think that is so important. And I'm really not even going to expand on it any further than that because I think it's very simple. It really doesn't need to be expanded upon. So as for the book that I'm reading, I'm still reading If Ye Shall Ask. I'm not going to give you a recommendation for it again because I've already done it twice. I am going to finish it this week. I promise. I will finish it this week. So we will be on to the next book, whatever that will be. Our prayer request for this week comes from a guy named Aslan, which is spelled exactly the way you think it is. It's spelled Aslan, which is the same name as the lion from the Chronicles of Narnia, Aslan. I don't think he didn't pronounce it Aslan. It was like Aslan, Aslan or something like that. So that's kind of cool. He needed prayer for his sanity. Not like literally, he wasn't going insane, but, he did feel very stressed with his work and sleep schedule. And this is relatable. I totally relate to this. I work long days, sometimes 8 to 10 hour days. And even though I work long days, I still have trouble staying up late. I still have a problem with staying up late. And I stay up way later than I need to. And then I go to bed late, and then I wake up still really tired, and I feel groggy, and I can't go to work, or I need to go to work, and I just feel terrible. So it's a lot to manage. But Aslan and by the way, if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, I apologize. But Aslan just really needs prayer to bring his life together and get back to a healthy sleep schedule and also a healthy mindset when he's working, to not lash out at people that lash out at him and to respond with love and kindness. So if we could be praying for Aslan this week, that would be great. Anyway, that is going to do it for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed. And if you did, please subscribe and comment down below any prayer requests that you might have. I am getting kind of close to 50 subscribers. So if I manage to hit 50 subs soon, I think I'll do a little bit of a subscriber special. And also, if you have any ideas for topics, something that you want me to talk about, a question that you want to ask me, or anything else, let me know, and I'll get back to you. Anyway, I hope you all have a blessed week, and I'll see you all next Monday. Right? Yeah, Monday. All right, see ya.